Now let's look at what are the components of emotional intelligence. If we divide the components of emotional intelligence broadly, we can say that they're divided into intrapersonal and interpersonal. Clearly, as the name suggests, when I say intrapersonal, it has to do with managing my emotions. The focus is on self. Let's divide this into further steps, into further subcategories. The first one, the first most essential one for that matter, is knowing your emotions. Now, knowing your emotions, when I say knowing your emotions, you must have often noticed that students tend to use terminologies and jargons like I don't feel like it, or I'm not in a mood, or I'm not up to doing a certain task. Now, we tend to broadly categorize our emotions in the category of either happy or sad, positive or negative. But here we don't realize that there is a range of emotions between happy and sad that we also feel. It is very essential to label these emotions that we're feeling. For instance, if I ask you, how are you feeling today? It can range from your first instance, the first instance that comes to your mind is happy, sad, okay. Uh, Learn to be a little more specific and label your emotions. For instance, jealous, grumpy, frustrated, embarrassed, confused, loved, calm, sleepy, angry, disappointed. So now these are positive or negative. I have more specifically labeled my feelings. This is very essential when this is like the first step when we're talking about building emotional competence, and it starts from the self. Now, knowing how am I feeling, knowing my emotions, this is also called as emotional awareness. And that means I recognize the feelings, I recognize and I'm willing to label and accept how I am feeling today. The second step here in intrapersonal is motivation. Now, when I say motivation, our emotions do have the capability to empower us or disempower us. In case we let them grow on us to the extent that they overwhelm us, they can also affect our performance at work. You must have noticed that if you're really excited at work, it tends to show in your behavior, your body language, the way you communicate with others. It tends to show on your work. You tend to be more productive. If this is true, even the opposite is true. That means if I'm feeling very low for whatever reason, it is bound to reflect on my work. It is bound to reflect in my body language. So motivating, that means I'm using these emotions, having recognized how I feel today, I'm using these emotions to channelize them properly so as to increase my productivity. The third step, which is managing emotions. Now, having recognized, having been emotionally aware, having recognized how I feel and accepting it, I need to some of the negative emotions that I'm feeling or I might feel, or some emotions that are overwhelming, I have to channelize them, or I have to wait till a point, till the fact that I can actually express them. It involves a lot of self-control. Now here, I'm not asking you to suppress your emotions. I'm asking you to channelize them. There's a difference. If you go back to the definition of what Aristotle once said, that means getting angry is very easy. However, getting angry to the right degree and with the right person in the right way, that is difficult. How can we explain this better? Say, think of that one time that you went to a restaurant and you ordered for some soup. However, the soup comes to your table which is absolutely cold, and it's not up to the mark. You probably saw a strand of hair in it. Now, what do? Do you lose your cool on your friend who kept pestering you to go to this particular restaurant? And what happens? You are very hungry, you're famished, and you're unhappy with the service and the quality of food. You vent it out on your friend who was pestering you to go to that particular restaurant. That's one. Second, or you would rather, which is a more appropriate way of channelizing that negative emotion, could have been you call the manager, you call the waiter, ask them to replace it, probably give you a refund, or probably give you a free meal, or ask them to raise the quality, or you just get up and go to another restaurant. Now, these are various ways in which one could have dealt with the same situation differently. Depending on our emotional competence, we would deal with the same situation differently. A very good way to deal with something like this would have been, I ask the manager, I bring it to his notice, I ask for the chef, and I ask them to replace it. Ensure that this time it's all up to the mark. Of course, at that time, I don't put so much thought before channelizing my negative expressions. That is one. The second component of emotional intelligence is to do with the interpersonal dimension. Now, when I say interpersonal dimension, interpersonal has to do with within two individuals, or within a group, or within a team. If you reflect right now on any problem that you have, you would probably notice that 90% of that problem has to do with the relationship dimension with that person. And there's only 10% or 20% that has to do with the technical aspect of that problem. See for yourself. In case there's any problem that you're facing right now, it has more to do with the relationship aspect of that particular problem. I'll give you some examples. Say you need to communicate to your boss that you want to apply for a leave. Now, of course, it also depends on whether you have some pending work going on, how well do you communicate, are you able to empathize with the boss, and vice versa. So, if you look at any problem you have, personal, professional, it has more to do with what your relationship aspects are with that person. Think of the conflicts at work. So the conflict at work may not necessarily generate with a clash of opinions. It might also have a lot to do with, especially the resolution of that conflict, it might have a lot to do with your rapport with the other person, or say your relationship with the other person at work. How cordial or not so cordial you are at work. So interpersonal component of emotional intelligence has a lot to do with how you understand other people's emotions, how well do you empathize with them, how well do you regulate, use that information, having recognized how are they feeling, having recognized that, you use that information in order to channelize your thinking and take appropriate action. For someone who is in a very vulnerable stage or is feeling very depressed, no matter how good an advice you give to that person, the person is not going to take it. So the fact that you realize this particular thing and you're waiting for a better day or a better opportunity or to talk about more sensitive issues to the other person, it is very, very essential to build on to your emotional competence.